Hello and welcome to the show. We have got some incredible challenge for you today. I'm going to try and roll a car in reverse. Yeah, I'm not looking forward to this one either. This is a pretty mental challenge. I've seen it commented a few times. Thought I'd give it a go. So we're going to start with the Lamborghini Miura. This is the one which we raced in the reverse racing. It's a very, very fast car in reverse. It'll do sort of 130 miles an hour plus. I don't actually know how fast it will go. I've never got it to its sort of theoretical top speed in reverse because I keep spinning it out before I get there. So yeah, it's a little bit tricky to drive, but it is very fast, which is good because I am going to need speed for this because it's, oh dear, this is not an easy thing to try and do. I'm going to start by saying that because, oh god, it's very, very tricky to drive these cars. Now, a number of reasons why it is so tricky. First of all, getting these things started, they have very long gears. This is probably a smaller thing, but these have very, very long gears. Which means that sort of getting them off the line and actually getting to accelerate to a speed takes quite a long run up, which means that this curb from this angle is pretty much unattackable, whatever you want to call it. That's probably terrible English there, because there's a chicane there. You can't go around a chicane while driving in reverse, certainly not at any speed. So for this angle it's absolutely useless. You can see you just can't build up the speed to sort of attack the curve to actually get it onto two wheels at all. So you're going to have to use the other way, and you can only really come from this direction to get enough speed up for it. Now the biggest problem of all, of course, is the steering. Now, driving a car in reverse, you've got your steering and effectively at the back, which makes the car very, very difficult to drive. If you've seen our reverse speedrun and seen our reverse racing, these things are incredibly hard to drive in reverse because pretty much you touch the steering and it will spin out unless you do really, really delicate manoeuvres. Now for this challenge I'm using a steering wheel. With a controller I don't think you could do it because the controllers just don't have the tiny degrees of movement that you need to be able to keep control of these cars in reverse. But even with the steering wheel, you'll see that I am kind of struggling with it. I'm sure somebody might be able to drive in reverse with a controller, but it's very, very tricky because you have to do such tiny, tiny movements. However, as we were practicing, I was still having difficulties hitting the curb. I had hit it a couple of times. You did see that it kind of go a little bit up on two wheels, which is making me think this is actually going to be possible, which is something I didn't necessarily think at the start. The Miura is always going to be a tricky car to roll. Even normal, there we go. See, look at that. It was on quite a lot on two wheels there. It is a supercar concept, I should say. It's never going to be that easy to roll. Look how low it is to the ground. Look how wide it is. It's always going to be tricky. Even if I was going forward, it would be tricky. But going backwards is, yeah, it's a little bit ridiculous. So yeah, I did eventually have to head to the upgrade shop to kind of try and mess about with this car because, as you can see, standard, it kind of goes on two wheels, but it's nowhere near getting sort of far enough onto two wheels. I shouldn't say upgrade shop because it's already fully upgraded. I go tuning shop to try and play around with the Miura and get it to roll. So I pretty much just raised the suspension on here. I mean, it's not a huge amount to raise it to. I think it starts off at like 3.2 and it goes to 4, something like that. It's just no ride height really. Tiny amounts of ride height makes this thing very, very tricky to roll. And I suspect if I was trying to drive this thing forward, trying to get it to roll forward, it would be incredibly hard as well. So yeah, as you can see, it's just not really going to go. But it is reassuring to see that the car was actually getting onto two wheels. I spent a while with this Miura trying to try and get it to go, to do anything. May have bounced over the curb there, completely forgot where it was. It's another difficulty actually is trying to see where the blooming curb is because you're constantly looking back. So you're basically holding down the look back button. That is the closest I got the Miura after about 20-30 minutes of trying. That is the closest I could get it, and it was pretty close, to be fair. For a supercar, that's not bad. But the difficulty in seeing the curb is you're constantly holding down the look back button, and if you're in first person view, it's weird not having any point of reference on your car, so you can't really aim to the curve very well. And if you're in third person view, you've got a car in the way of the sort of the final approach to the curve, which makes it very hard to kind of see where you're aiming. Now up next I was going to go to the Dodge Ram, seeing as this was a very, very easy car to roll forwards. In fact, I rolled it in the Super Truck video, or Super Truck Showdown, whatever you want to call it video. So I was going to give a go with this one. Now again, this has been fully upgraded, so it's got some 900 odd horsepower. The suspension has already been tinkered with because I was expecting this to be very tricky because this isn't as fast as the Miura. While yes, I've got the gears lengthened, it will do, I think it's 80 or 90 miles an hour in reverse. Pretty impressive nonetheless, but that's not as fast as the Miura, so I was expecting this to be rather tricky. it's a bigger vehicle than the Miura as well. It's a little bit more difficult to control, I would say, because it is, yeah, it's a pretty large sort of truck, and the first attempt I kind of completely missed it. Now, as I said about not being able to see the curb, this was a bigger problem with the Ram, because it's a huge vehicle. When you're looking back, yeah, you just got the Ram in the way, and it's very hard, especially on the sort of like the final, sort of just before you hit the curb, you can't see it at all, which makes it very tricky to aim for. However, it was on the second attempt that the Ram managed to roll, and I'm very pleased with that. I can't believe that the Ram managed to roll after just pretty much 2 attempts. I mean, this is a very easy to roll vehicle. We've seen it before. It rolls over very, very easily, but even in reverse, that's some feat. However, I wasn't just going to leave it there. So we've managed to roll the Ram, but this was a highly upgraded Ram to sort of complete this with. So I was going to give it a go with some other vehicles. I was going to have a go with the Ford Raptor. This has got another, again, got a big engine in it, or standard, it's got a fairly big engine in it, so it should have a lot of power. I was going to try this sort of standard at the moment, but it's very quickly apparent that's not going to work. Even while the Raptor has a big, powerful engine, gear ratios are still relatively short, so it does like 40 miles an hour in reverse, which isn't enough. Now the reason I'm using the Raptor, again, it's a big truck, and much like we saw in the Super Truck video, again, it was got on 2 wheels. I nearly rolled this one, so I was thinking this might be fairly easy, but it's standard, it's not got long enough gear ratios, sort of at all. So it was off to the upgrade shop with this one. Now for this, I put in just engine upgrades in the gearbox. So the suspension and everything is completely standard, it's just the engine that has been upgraded. I think I pretty much put everything in the engine, get as much power out of it as I could so I could go as fast as possible in reverse. And of course then you put the gearbox in and you lengthen the gears. So this was doing, again, it was about 60 or 70 miles an hour in reverse depending on how good a line you got into this corner bit. And it's just not going to really work. The suspension on the Raptor is too soft. It's a kind of an off-road vehicle, so that wasn't going to work because the suspension was far too soft to get in this thing to roll. Now, I'm going to show you the difficulty now of actually trying to see where you go. The Raptor, yes, that's what this is even more difficult because it's absolutely massive, even bigger than the Ram. You can see how hard it is to actually see where the curb is and see where the back of your vehicle is. Because, yeah, this is the view that I was getting while I was doing it. You just can't see the back of the vehicle, which makes aiming for the curb very, very tricky. And of course you can't really make last minute changes because you're in reverse and you try doing anything silly, then you're just going to have a spin. So seeing as the Raptor wasn't working, I had to go with a Peugeot 107. Now the idea, this is a sort of a tall city car that should have a relatively high centre of mass and should fall over without too many issues. Of course it is still got the standard suspension, however it has got the engine from a Peugeot 207 I believe, sort of fully upgraded with gearbox again. The problem with this one here is now the lack of speed. This doesn't really go particularly fast in reverse. Even with the fully upgraded engine, the gearbox made with really long gears, it's just not fast enough. It's only sort of 50 miles an hour, whereas the Raptor and the Ram were doing sort of near a 90, and the Miura is much, much faster. I tried a while with the Peugeot in the hope that that sort of high centre of mass would make it fall over, but it wasn't working. It's just not fast enough. Also, the fact that it is so small kind of works against it because it's so twitchy and sort of harder to drive than the other vehicles. Such a small wheelbase makes it even easier to spin, and which was making it pretty tricky to even hit the curb properly. Because yeah, it's just so twitchy. As you can see there though, even when I was going sort of at the right angle, it's just nothing was really happening. So I don't think this one would roll in reverse for no matter try. Maybe, again, with upgraded suspension maybe, but that's kind of not the point at the moment. So, we move on next to the Smart Car. Now again, this was a very easy one to roll first time I did it. It fell over like first attempt, I think. These are very, very easy cars to roll because they're very narrow, very tall. However, much like the Peugeot, it's not going to be very fast. Now I had to put all the upgrades in it because standard it does like 20 or something in reverse. It was utterly useless. It has got a fully upgraded engine, but it's still only sort of 200 horsepower, or maybe a little bit more than that. But it's still tiny amounts of horsepower. I've made the gears as long as I could, but it's still not particularly fast in reverse. It hasn't got a huge amount of power. So I think it gets about sort of 50 maybe at best in reverse in this. So it's not particularly fast. However, it should roll over fairly easy because of the centre of mass. First attempt, that is the first attempt with a car, and it's so nearly rolled over. In fact, it would have rolled over if I'd steered the correct way. Because I was in reverse, I ended up steering the wrong way, trying to make it fall over, and I actually saved that one. So I wasn't too pleased with that. I basically saved it. However, having seen that it looked fairly straightforward, I wasn't expecting this one to take particularly long. I mean, while the car's not fast, it did almost fall over first attempt. And then I completely missed the curb on that one, or didn't quite hit the right point. And yeah, it was being rather a pain. I spent a while trying to get this to go on 2 wheels again. it's very weird doing this. I think it's just because in reverse you can't quite aim precisely enough like you can when you're going forward. When you're in reverse, you just don't have the nice control over the car, really. It's a lot more luck is involved in trying to find the right point in the curb. And yeah, it wasn't really working. The lack of speed, of course, wasn't helping the smart car either. Anyway, I could attack the curve from both ways this time, actually, because the car was so slow. And eventually, there we go. Smart car's gone for a sort of a tumble. It took a while, to be honest. After that brilliant first attempt, it took a long time to get that thing to do that. But the smart car has now been rolled in reverse. I'm quite impressed because of its, well, complete and utter lack of speed. Now this got me thinking though, how little upgrades could we get away with? Now I could have just tried to roll the Ram with standard suspension upgrade engine, but that'd be fairly boring. However, I'm going to give a go with the Ram with just the gearbox. The engine is completely standard, suspension is completely standard. It is the gearbox that is modified so I can make really long gears. Because the Ram has a big powerful engine in its standards, a 500 horsepower Viper engine. So it's a fairly quick car, got plenty of power, and in reverse it is still doing about 80 miles an hour, just completely standard engine. So this was looking kind of plausible, although the suspension is rather soft. This is attempt number 3, and it's kind of gone over, and then the fence caught it, and now it's sort of stuck on its side. The blooming fence basically stopped it from rolling over. It would have rolled over properly had the fence not been there, but there we go, it is kind of stuck on its side. So I was going to go and have a go and try and get it to roll properly, because I'd normally say on here that it has to have gone onto its roof to count as a proper roll. And then I spent sort of 20 minutes with this Ram not getting anywhere. And I just couldn't get it to do that again. It just everything I was doing just wasn't working. It was barely even lifting wheels off at this time. It was very hard aiming for that specific point on the curb in reverse. So I suspect that this probably would roll with enough time, but after sort of half an hour of trying, I got fairly fed up with it. It's just too tricky steering it in reverse. You don't have the nice sort of finite control over it that you would like to kind of aim at very specific points, which makes it sort of very hit and miss as to whether it will roll. However, the whole point of this challenge was to find if I could roll a car in reverse, and I did. I rolled 2. I'm sure there are probably other ones that would. I just didn't have time to go through every single car in the game to find stuff, because yeah, there are many cars. So I don't know if you want to count that the sort of standard Ram roll that kind of went on its side. It would have gone over had it not been the fence. If you look at it in slow motion, it was actually rolling past its side when it hit the fence. So it kind of slightly, maybe kind of cheaty counts, but there we go. So that is it for this video, guys. Thank you very much for watching. It's incredibly hot in my room, so I apologise if this isn't the most fantastic recording ever, because yeah, I'm stupidly warm and I have to turn my fan off for this. So I'm going to give up in a minute. As ever, if you have sort of like a challenge or a theme of cars you would like to see us do, then please leave it in the comment section. I'll have a look through and I will pick my favourites. However, until next time, goodbye.